we all know about that scandal in Bell. It's not the only place where the city leaders are behaving badly.
Now, Chris Blatchford has the exclusive story of Hawthorne managers impersonating police, hanging out at strip clubs, and losing their jobs.
Here at City Hall in Hawthorne, a scandal was brewing for months, and nobody did anything about it. It is a story that involves drunk and raucous behavior, city officials impersonating cops, and a cover-up. Some people here are still angry about it. It all began just a couple miles from City Hall here at a strip club called the Wild Goose. And I think it's fair to say, using an old saying, that the events that unfolded here finally cooked someone's goose. It's advertised here on this website as an adult cabaret. Customers are invited to get loose at the Goose. Hawthorne City Manager Jag Patharana apparently accepted that invitation. In fact, Fox 11 has learned he was somewhat of a regular at the topless club. Court records show he pleaded no contest in 2003 to soliciting a prostitute just minutes away from the Wild Goose. And on the night of July 31st, 2009, Patharana was here partying with Luis Escobar, the city's finance manager. This internal City Hall memo, prepared in June by a private investigator and obtained by Fox 11, says a drunk Escobar had a fight with a dancer when he refused to tip her for a lap dance. A club security guard who does not want to be identified remembers the night.
I know there was an argument with one of the girls, and I know the manager was going to call the cops.
This sheriff's department incident log shows he did call the cops, but it doesn't end there. Escobar ended up handcuffed in the back of a patrol car and falsely identified himself as a Hawthorne police officer. Lieutenant Steve Cruikshank, the watch commander that night, says Patharana did too.
Told the employees at the Goose that they were Hawthorne police officers. And it was their impression, the manager's impression for quite some time, that both of them, who somewhat come in there regularly, from what I understand, were Hawthorne police officers.
Cruikshank says that night he emailed two captains and the chief of police about the incident. But Cruikshank was soon out of the mix. He went home sick and, as it turned out, retired 2 weeks later. No charges were ever filed against Escobar or Patharana. But we've learned that Patharana sometimes carried a badge. Again, the security guard.
But these guys said they were cops. Yeah, they showed a badge.
It's illegal.
Retired LAPD Commander Joe Gunn, former executive director of the Police Commission, has spent 50 years dealing with law enforcement issues.
It's also insulting to every professional law enforcement officer who acts in a professional way with integrity, because all these people are going to remember is that this guy came in with a badge and tried to curry favor.
Nearly 9 months passed before Hawthorne Police Chief Michael Heffner was asked by a new interim city manager to explain the Wild Goose incident. In this inter-office communication obtained by Fox 11, the chief recounted the events without ever acknowledging that Patharana and Escobar pretended to be cops. 2 weeks later, Escobar refused to answer questions about the Wild Goose in an interview with a private investigator.
I'm totally uncomfortable with this. That has nothing to do with work.
Then within 24 hours, Chief Heffner resigned. The private investigator tells us before the chief left, he said, "Let me go easy." He left questions unanswered and concerns about a possible cover-up. And now, newly elected City Councilman Alex Vargas says he wants to know the truth.
I definitely would invite the DA's office to come in and take a look, because the last thing that we need is to become the City of Bell.
During a special closed-door City Council meeting last spring, City Manager Jag Patharana was fired. Fox News has learned the night before, he asked Escobar and another City Hall employee to take home boxes of papers from his office. The next night, the same two were seen again off hours at City Hall. A police officer, in this report we obtained, called it suspicious activity. Escobar was later fired in a so-called economic cutback. We've reached out to him, Patharana, and the former chief, asking all of them to comment on our story, but there has been no response. But there are now rumblings here in Hawthorne that the Wild Goose cover-up is not the only goose that needs to be cooked, that there is more here to investigate.
I'm Chris Blatchford.